Welcome to this explainer. In the high-stakes world of asset management, where we are literally talking about billions of dollars changing hands every single day, there's one currency that's arguably way more valuable than the capital itself, and that's trust. Asset managers act as fiduciaries and custodians for their clients. They hold other people's financial futures in their hands. When that trust is solid, capital flows smoothly. But when that trust is broken through unethical behavior, well, the fallout is absolutely massive. So today, we're diving into how the SASB standards specifically measure and require disclosure on business ethics in this sector.
But that raises a really tough question. How do you actually put a transparent price tag on a breach of trust? Asset managers operate in an incredibly complex regulatory environment, and it's constantly evolving internationally. Companies are forced to navigate this often inconsistent set of rules relating to performance and conduct across different jurisdictions. And when entities fail to navigate these rules, whether it's through insider trading, market manipulation, or antitrust behavior, it results in legal proceedings. Those proceedings, as you might guess, result in massive monetary losses.
Okay, let's dive into this. On our agenda today, the cost of broken trust, tracking the legal losses, and calculating the fines. Then we'll cover the whistleblower early warning mechanics and incentives, and finally, protecting long-term shareholder value. I want you to think of these topics as a two-sided coin. On one side, we have reactive damage, and on the other, proactive prevention. First, we'll establish the financial sting of bad ethics, and then we're going to explore the systems required to stop those losses before they even start.
Section 1. The cost of broken trust, fiduciary duties and regulations. To really grasp why these metrics exist, we first have to ground ourselves in the concept of fiduciary duty. Asset managers are legally bound to act in the best interests of their clients, subjecting them to incredibly strict legal requirements. But let's be real, with high stakes come high temptations, and the financial industry is heavily scrutinized by regulators who have incredibly broad mandates.
The SASB standard actually hits the nail on the head with this insight. It says, entities that ensure regulatory compliance through robust internal controls may build trust with clients, increase revenue, and protect shareholder value by minimizing losses. Honestly, I really want you to focus on that last part. Managing ethics isn't just some boring box-checking exercise for the legal department. It's a fundamental financial strategy. By avoiding these massive legal penalties, asset managers are directly protecting long-term shareholder value. Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. Tracking the legal losses. Metric FNAC 510A.1. You can kind of think of this first metric as the mandatory damage report. This is the cold, hard, quantitative disclosure of the total amount of monetary losses a company incurs as a direct result of legal proceedings tied to unethical business practices. If we break down the specific categories targeted here, it makes perfect sense. Under market integrity, companies are required to report losses from insider trading and market manipulation. Under fair competition, we're looking closely at antitrust and anti-competitive behavior. And under professional conduct, we have fraud, malpractice, and other related financial industry laws. Simply put, if a company is caught engaging in practices that artificially distort the market or defraud their clients, the resulting financial damage lands squarely in this reporting category. Section 3. Calculating the fines. What counts as a loss? Because just telling companies to report your losses is nowhere near specific enough for an accounting standard. We actually need to define the precise mechanics of what gets tallied up when these adjudicative proceedings happen, whether they're playing out before a court, a regulator, or an arbitrator. Now, what's really interesting here is this strict rule of exclusion. While things like settlements, civil or criminal judgments, penalties, disgorgements, and restitution are entirely included in the total, any legal fees or expenses the company incurs while defending itself are strictly excluded. The standard deliberately isolates the pure financial penalty of the unethical act itself. This ensures the actual fine isn't muddied by those astronomically high corporate defense bills.
And it doesn't stop with a number. Companies can't just drop a massive dollar amount in their annual report and walk away. They have to provide the qualitative context. They need to detail the nature of the loss. Was it a guilty plea, a settlement, a deferred prosecution agreement? They must describe the context, like was it market manipulation or antitrust? But most importantly, they must detail the specific corrective actions they implemented. Did they change their daily operations? Did they fire management, alter their products, upgrade their training? They literally have to tell the full story of how they fixed the root problem.
Section 4. The whistleblower early warning. Metric FNAC 510A.2. This brings us to a major pivot. If the previous metric was the receipt for the damage already done, this metric is the early warning system.
It's explicitly designed to stop those massive financial losses before they even occur. We are officially moving from reactive fines to proactive detection. This metric demands a comprehensive description of the company's whistleblower policies and procedures, the internal processes, compliance frameworks, and reporting channels that let individuals safely flag regulatory violations. And here's why this is so critical right now. Regulators in some jurisdictions are offering incredibly lucrative, enhanced financial rewards for whistleblowers. Insiders are increasingly taking their complaints straight to the authorities because regulators are practically paying employees to speak up. This makes it absolutely vital for asset management firms to have their own robust, internal reporting frameworks to catch these issues in-house before they snowball into public, multi-million-dollar regulatory nightmares.
Section 5. Mechanics and Incentives. Building the program. Because as we all know, it is not enough to simply say, oh yeah, we have a policy for that. Investors need the precise mechanical details to prove that the early warning system is functional, accessible, and actually effective.
So the disclosure is broken down into actionable steps. It starts with those overarching internal compliance programs, but I want you to look at step 2, hotline management. Crucially, is that reporting hotline managed internally or by a safer independent third party to guarantee anonymity? Step 3 requires companies to disclose how they actually publish this hotline. Is it buried in the footnotes of a 500-page HR manual, or is it clearly referenced in the Corporate Code of Ethics? And Step 4 details the various methods available for employees to actually submit these tips. This is all about translating a theoretical policy into a transparent, mechanical safety net. So the crucial point is right here, incentives. The SASB standard explicitly calls for the disclosure of whistleblower incentives for reporting violations. Think about it. A system is really only as good as the motivation people have to use it. If external regulators are out there offering massive cash bounties for tips, what is the internal company doing to encourage its employees to report violations in-house first? The answer to that question is a massive indicator of how seriously a company actually takes its business ethics.
And the standard goes one step further, bringing transparency full circle. Organizations must identify the specific jurisdictional whistleblower laws they're subject to. But more importantly, they must come clean if they themselves actually violated those whistleblower protections during their reporting period, and then detail the corrective actions they took. After all, you can't really claim to have a great business ethics program if you're actively penalizing the very people who are trying to use it.
Section 6. Protecting long-term shareholder value, the big picture. Let's zoom out for a second and connect these dots. We've looked at the reactive fines and the proactive early warning systems. How does all of this serve the primary concern of asset managers and the investors who scrutinize them? Well, it is all about preserving long-term value.
And this brilliantly illustrates how these two metrics function together as one unified ethics standard. On one side of the equation, metric 510A.1 puts a harsh spotlight on past failures. It quantifies the exact dollar amount lost to fraud, antitrust behavior, and market manipulation. And on the flip side, metric 510A2 forces entities to prove they are actually learning from those mistakes by detailing the mechanics and incentives of the systems designed to catch bad actors early. Together, they give investors a clear, uncompromising picture of whether an asset manager's ethical house is genuinely in order.
Which leaves us with this final thought to consider. In an industry where trust is the ultimate currency, these metrics ensure that companies aren't just hiding behind generic corporate statements about integrity. They are forced to show the receipts. So, the next time you're looking at an asset manager's disclosures, ask yourself, is their transparency genuinely building a culture of trust through robust early warnings, or are they just perpetually paying the fines for their ethical failures? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep looking for the real story behind the data.